Special good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, members of the public joining us this evening. Welcome to the Diplomatic Center. Today, as you'd have seen, the government was on the ground led with the Prime Minister as the government continues its relief efforts for our CARICOM sister Jamaica. Leading the forefront with the Prime Minister has been the chair of the government's Inter-Ministerial Committee, and that is the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. So this evening we are joined by the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs to address you on the steps that have been taken and will be taken to continue the government's efforts to help our CARICOM sister. And he's ably supported by the Minister of Rural and Local Development, Minister Khadija Amin, who is also the chair of the subcommittee of that interministerial committee, and she will also update you on the government's progress as it relates to working with the general public. So, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, let me welcome the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Honorable Sean Sobers, to address you this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to join us here at the Diplomatic Center. As my colleague within the ministry, Parliamentary Secretary, Minister Morris would have indicated, essentially what would have taken place is under the direction of the Honorable Prime Minister. Since last week, we would have been tracking Hurricane Melissa and its passage and trajectory going to Jamaica, Haiti, and Cuba. Based upon the trajectory and the information coming out from the meteorological centers, the Prime Minister would have indicated that obviously as the hurricane grew in strength and its passage, we would need to form a committee to ensure that we get services out, goods and services to our brothers and sisters and the people and the government of Jamaica in terms of services to assist them during that time. Pursuant to that, on the 27th of October, which is Monday, at the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, based upon the instruction of the Prime Minister, we would have held a meeting with several different agencies which began the kickoff of the Interministerial Committee. That committee essentially comprises, it is led by the Office of the Prime Minister. As the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, I chair the committee, the Minister of Finance, the Ministry of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, the Ministry of Health, Land and Legal Affairs, Ministry of Public Utilities, Ministry of Homeland Security, Ministry of Defense, Ministries of Works and Infrastructure, Trade, Investment and Tourism, Transport and Civil Aviation, and also the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. At that very first meeting, we would have outlined essentially what would be the steps that would be adopted subsequent to the passage of the hurricane. So what would usually happen is that the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, also known as CDEMA, would liaise with our version of that in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the ODPM. And CDEMA would work with Jamaica to prepare a list, a needs list, which they would forward to the ODPM, and it would be passed on to the varying ministries, this interministerial committee. The needs list would be updated based upon needs being filled or needs being a greater request for certain items on the listing. Subsequent to that, we had discussions with respect to how we would mobilize this entire effort and what would be our relationship with corporate and public institutions and their donations. And so, pursuant to that, we identified specific locations for the corporate entities to deliver donations within the central region, specifically in the port of Point Lisas, because they would assist with respect to shipping. And we also liaised with the corporate sector as it pertains to logistics. The TTDF and the ODPM would have provided assistance in terms of offloading cargo. And today, coming out of Monday, we had a meeting on Tuesday again with the Honorable Prime Minister and that interministerial committee, and then within 24 hours at Point Lisas, we would have had several members, corporate entities that began to send goods down to Point Lisas. Minister Amin would share some more information on that. The Prime Minister toured the facility today, and upon her arrival, well, prior to her arrival, we had already loaded basically 6 containers, which will join 2 more that would leave the port this evening on its way for its first sailing to Jamaica, and we expect those goods to arrive in Jamaica on Sunday. I have been in constant communication with the Minister of Foreign and Trade in Jamaica, Minister Camilla Johnson, and also Minister Dana Dixon, who is the Minister of Education and Information, who are also part of a ministerial team, interministerial team mirroring what we are doing here in Trinidad, obviously on the ground in Jamaica. And we have been liaising to ensure that no efforts are being duplicated as we try to get these goods out to the people and the government of Jamaica. We understand, based upon the reports coming out of Jamaica, that the situation in certain parts of the island is extremely bad, and our prayers go out to the people of Jamaica. Our Prime Minister has also been in constant contact with Prime Minister Holness, and today at Point Lisas, and I want to echo what she indicated. She wanted to congratulate Prime Minister Holness for his leadership role and capability during this particular period in Jamaica, and underscored the fact that Trinidad and Tobago will stand shoulder to shoulder with Jamaica to ensure that as much as we are asked, we will provide. And we intend to continue these efforts as long as Jamaica requires it. If I'm not mistaken, we've also liaised with some aspects of Southcom so that they will provide us with some assistance to move personnel to Jamaica as well too, and heavy equipment as required, such as generators and water tanks, and an advanced team from ODPM and the TTDF would be leaving to go to Jamaica, I believe, on Saturday morning. So those are some of the efforts. In short, I mean, we would have been down ensuring that the warehouses were properly stocked, working alongside our corporate partners, Corporate Trinidad and Tobago, until maybe around minutes to 12, after 12 last night, an effort that began sometime after 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. And we are quite happy with the progress that we've made as a government. The Prime Minister was also very pleased, and in terms of our conversations with the High Commission here for Jamaica locally, and with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Education and Information in Jamaica, they're also very pleased with the efforts that Trinidad and Tobago has adopted in furtherance of these relief efforts. And so I will now hand over to Minister Amin, who will give a breakdown as to some more information that the public can avail itself of if they want to also participate and get involved in the relief efforts and exercises that the government is currently spearheading.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is one of the ministries on this interministerial committee formed by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar to coordinate relief efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, and in particular for Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. In furtherance of ensuring that supplies reach to our brothers and sisters in those areas devastated by this hurricane, we have made several collection points available to members of the public, NGOs, and civil organizations, and they are invited to drop off relief items and supplies at any of the 14 municipal corporations within Trinidad. we have provided a list of the offices of the municipal corporations to make it easier for people in all parts of the country to contribute. In some regional corporations, councillors have indicated that they will also use their offices as collection points and take it to the regional corporation. These items will then be collected, packaged, and shipped to Jamaica. Our disaster management units have provided lists of the items, and I will share with you some categories of items that we have listed to make it easier for the public and those who want to give. You can contribute hygiene products, personal health supplies, household and safety essentials, consumables, food, clothing and textiles, including blankets, but we ask that we do not provide used clothing at this time. We also have we try to make it easy for persons to drop off their items and for the regional corporation and the disaster management units to keep account of what comes in. In addition to this, I must say a huge thank you to Corporate Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister's efforts has coordinated the private sector through the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, who have been mobilizing donations from manufacturers within this country who have already been loading pallets of goods produced in Trinidad, manufactured in Trinidad, to be shipped to Jamaica, and several containers have been filled. The business chambers, business owners who are part of those chambers, the chambers have been coordinating in conjunction with the government's effort to donate items. We also have the Supermarkets Association, who has been pooling together foodstuff in a way that is easy to ship in terms of on the pallet and ready to go. We also have hardwares that have coordinated, and of course most of them will be supplying from their stock. We also have entities, especially the bigger companies, who already ship to Jamaica and who have stock either on the way or in storage in Jamaica, who have indicated that they will make this available as part of Trinidad and Tobago's donation towards the effort. So some goods that is already in Trinidad through the TTMA and businesses in Trinidad will be made available to the Jamaica relief efforts, the Jamaican Authority, and that will also be part of Trinidad and Tobago's contribution. A lot of people have been asking in terms of cash donations. We have an account number at FCB, which I will share with you, and sometimes it's very practical to put the cash towards purchasing items in bulk where you can get a lower price. So rather than one person go to buy items retail, you can sometimes get more value for money. The TTMA has indicated a willingness to facilitate getting items at below cost. They also have an account that they have indicated that they have over $100,000 available to add to the supplies. But all citizens, entities, NGOs, and businesses can also make cash donations to the First Citizens Bank, Trinidad and Tobago National Disaster Relief Fund, and the account number is 315-4684. Donations can be made at any branch of FCB, but it can also be online as well. You can do an online transfer. And of course, these funds will be utilized to make more supplies available. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs indicated, while Jamaica's ODP-EM has sent us a list of items, when they begin their assessment in the aftermath, this list will be updated. And when they have a better appreciation of the damage, the need, the human situation, They will advise us if they need more things. We in Trinidad have had our share of disasters, and from my own experience, I know they will have to consider things like field medical tents, getting supplies to areas that may not have access, road access, where communications have fallen down. And while we are hoping for the best, we must prepare for the worst. And so when it comes to the aftermath, they will do their assessment of infrastructural damage, including damage to roadway that may hinder the delivery of relief items, damage to public utilities such as water, electricity, particularly where electricity lines being down can pose a danger to the public, damage to communication infrastructure that may leave people with a sense of anxiety because they cannot be in contact with those in affected areas. Even now in Trinidad and Tobago, there are those with relatives in Jamaica and they have not had communication with them. We know that there is naturally a sense of unease. However, based on our relationship with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign and CARICOM Affairs in Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Sean Sobers, and his counterpart in Jamaica, we have many open lines of communication. And thus far, we have been getting by very well, and I expect that this will continue to reap reward in the aftermath. So with that, I thank you, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Minister Amin and Mr. Sobers. We now have members of the media to ask your questions. All right, so I think prior.
Good afternoon, Prior Bihari. You hear me right?
Yeah.
Before I begin, there are two journalists outside from AFP Wire Service, and they've been barred from coming to this press conference. Is there any reason why?
Firstly, I don't think anybody will be barred because we are not aware of the situation. Secondly, this is the diplomatic center prior, right. And people, once they provide their credentials, they will be allowed in. And thirdly, prior, thirdly, let me answer. Just to put to rest any insinuation that we are running from international media, this government in the past week has subjected itself to international media. At Minister Sobers' press conference at his office on Sunday, Jim from Bloomberg was there in his conference room. In the parliament, in front of the parliament, international journalists were there and they spoke to us. So the government is not running, if you would like to say, from international. Let me just beat that on one time. This is the diplomatic center. It's not a open public forum, but once any person provides credentials, the security will let them in. So I am not sure what you're speaking about. So, well, prior, again, that is an issue outside. So we will look into that. So let's get back to the matter at hand. For those valued members of our media here right now.
My first question for you, the USS Gravely left today. Are we in contact with Venezuela?
Is that related to the disaster relief for Jamaica?
No, but
okay.
The press conference asking the Minister of Foreign Affairs on our relations with Venezuela. At this point.
No, you asked whether or not I was in contact with Venezuela. I have been in contact with the ambassador.
And are we going to talk to them in terms of dragon gas, in terms of what is happening in Venezuela when they have declared the Prime Minister persona non grata?
There are several discussions that are engaging both sides at this point in time.
What about dragon gas? Is that one of it?
You would need to refer that to the Minister of Energy.
And in terms of Trinidad and Tobago going forward, are we still friends with Venezuela?
We have an embassy in Caracas. Venezuela has an embassy in Port of Spain. There's nothing to suggest that there's anything otherwise than diplomatic relations continuing between both countries.
Good afternoon. You've said that on Saturday there will be some personnel from the TTDF and others who might leave via Southcom vessel perhaps, or maybe an aircraft. Could you clarify whether it will be one of the U.S. naval vessels or an aircraft? Because Trinidad does not seem to have any current working naval vessels that could reach Jamaica.
No, well, you are correct. I did say a vessel. So we have Caribbean Airlines they have planes, and Southcom has indicated in terms of heavy equipment, if it is we needed to move water tanks and the like, that may not be able to be loaded on our Caribbean Airlines planes to go to Jamaica. They've been in communication with both Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago to facilitate the movement of those types of equipment. In terms of the personnel, they can go on a Caribbean Airlines flight.
Sure, thank you.
Good evening, Doris Polo, Guardian Media. Minister, you mentioned that Southcom will be willing to provide some movement, some assistance to move heavy equipment such as tanks to, deliver it to Jamaica as they continue to recover from Hurricane Melissa. My question is, do you have any concerns that Venezuela may see this as a cause for concern on their part after their reaction to the USS Gravely being docked here?
With all due respect, you are asking me whether or not another country would have a problem with Trinidad and Tobago, who is sovereign in nature, providing assistance, relief assistance for another CARICOM country after going through a hurricane? That is what you're asking? Well, to be fair, I really don't, I'm not going to speculate, but whether they have a problem or not, we will be assisting Jamaica.
The question wasn't whether we would or would not be assisting Jamaica, because we've seen the effort so far and the national call for persons to donate to rural development corporations and the DMUs checking. We know that. But given the current geopolitical climate and the conversations coming from the side, Venezuela's side, and our Prime Minister also making comments in response, the question, I think, to be a fair one, is whether the government has any concern about how Venezuela will perceive this interaction with the U.S. Southcom.
We have no concerns.
All right, so the next question. Has there been any amendment to the SOFA agreement to facilitate or allow the United States to use Trinidad and Tobago as a base here?
No, the SOFA agreement was put in place by the previous administration.
So no amendment?
No, the SOFA agreement was put in place by the previous administration. So you should actually, if you want to find out more on the SOFA agreement and its genesis, you should pose that question to the previous Prime Minister and members of the PNM administration.
I'm told that the feed is sticking. Could you all check it? All right. So, will anybody from the government be visiting Jamaica now that we heard the Prime Minister say she studied there, she's lived there for 14 years. Will we be visiting them at a diplomatic level to lend any moral support as they continue with their recovery efforts?
Definitely. In terms of at this juncture, the preliminary conversations have not centered around an official delegation visit, but we are more than prepared to send officials from the government to assist if and when the need arises, or if a request is made by other officials in Jamaica.
Have any Trinidadian nationals reached out? Because the Minister Amin said that some persons weren't able to reach out to their own families in Jamaica. Have any Trinidadians reached out requesting to come back home or requesting any sort of assistance?
Yes, we've had some requests not to come home, but we've had some requests from some students that we will be facilitating within short order.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, good day. Well, there was a situation where your cabinet colleague had spoken about illegal Venezuelan migrants in the country about to be suffer mass deportation. So I just wanted to, because you do have the foreign affairs portfolio, I wanted you to see if you wanted to slightly tweak that word mass, because mass seems to be this very broad thing, in favor of using the word targeted, because if there are persons who have I think that in the Venezuelan community here, however many thousands, there's some alarm apparently at what your colleague had said, but that's what I want to ask. So it's not just anybody, because we're getting these horrible pictures of, from the giant to the north, of people in front of their families being thrown to the ground, women and children screaming, and we don't really want those sort of scenarios, and it's not good for our name. We are a friend to all. So I just wondered if you wanted to tweak that thing of the word mass to be, say, targeted for those who may have been guilty of criminal activities, if you...
What I would say, Sean, is that I am not minded to tweak anything that the Minister of Homeland Security would have indicated. As a matter of fact, if someone is illegal here, they've committed an offense. It is in the Immigration Act. So if you enter illegally, it's an immigration offense and actually a criminal offense. And if you overstay, it is an immigration offense, which deems you essentially to be illegal and subject to a special inquiry and to be deported. So that if the numbers suggest that we have mass persons who have breached those regulations and legislations, then yes, pursuant to a special inquiry, they will be deported. And that is what he indicated, and that is what we stand by as an administration.
Supplemental, yeah. I mean, the fear is that as we say, the giant to the north, there have been a huge dent in the tourism sector because of certain actions. Ice baby, they might say. The agricultural sector, there are farmers going bankrupt there. There's been a lot of unforeseen ripple effects, and it's just not produced good international images. And is this something that we now, as a small island nation, we need to be friends with all, that we would want to say from now, well, we don't want to see those scenarios of a mother being wrestled to the ground by 3 burly men and her child crying in the corner, and families being split up, and schools being staked out, and workplaces being raided. I mean, can we allay some fears of that at all?
One, I don't know that those fears exist. 2, what you're describing, according to your situations or imagery that occurs somewhere in the north. And 3, deportations are a normal exercise that the Immigration Authority conducts. So we are not doing anything abnormal.
Minister, with the USS vessel leaving earlier today, can you tell us if anybody has remained in Trinidad and Tobago and whether cooperation is continuing between our defense force and theirs?
No, I'm not aware that anybody has remained in Trinidad and Tobago. And 2, cooperation with our defense force and theirs is something that pre-existed this administration and the administration before that. We have long diplomatic ties with the U.S. They are our largest trading partner. We do many exercises with them, not only with the military but other arms of the protective service, such as the TTPS and the Trinidad and Tobago naval units as well too. So, I mean, that is in fact the position.
Why are detainees, or can you confirm, I should rather say, whether detainees are being allowed to leave on supervisory orders, if that's something that is ongoing, and if not, why?
You're talking about illegal immigrants, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So under the Immigration Act, there's something called an order of supervision. If you read the act pellucidly, you will see that it is a discretionary power that the minister and the ministry can exercise.
So it's just a matter of discretion?
If you read the act, you'll pellucidly see that that is a matter of discretion.
Okay.
In terms of the the migrants who might be here illegally, and having regard to most of the other Caribbean islands who might be indebted to Venezuela via the Petrocaribe arrangements. Trinidad is not one such country. We are not indebted to Venezuela. Is it a possibility, or is it something you would entertain having a discussion with other Caribbean countries to perhaps take in some of the Venezuelan migrants in Trinidad and Tobago who might be putting some strain on the resources of this country, where they can utilize some of the monies that they are owed, or the monies really, that they are owed to Venezuela, to handle some of the migrant population here, because there is a huge migrant population here separate and apart from those who might have been detained.
I think that's a kind of loaded question, and then essentially it's not something that you should put to this administration or this government or this country. If you are talking about migrants being sent, however they are to be sent to another country, your question should then be posed to them.
No, is it a conversation that you are prepared as the Minister of Foreign Affairs to
question respectfully,
with them?
Your question respectfully, one, does not arise, and two, if you want to put it to someone who is able to fairly answer it, it should be one of those countries that you may have in mind.
The question really was, would you be prepared to broach the issue at any rate with those countries?
Right. So tomorrow, Parliament sits to debate a second extension to the state of emergency. So we would, I know the Prime Minister has told honourable ministers not to bat outside of their lane or whatever it is, but it is actually, it should be a common knowledge. It should be a common cabinet position as to why it may be required to have an extension. And then specifically from your angle with your portfolio, might there be considered to be a Venezuela-US angle to having a SOE extension because of the uncertainties, and we don't really know what we have within about a week or so. We'd have this huge aircraft carrier coming and nobody really knows. So that would be my question, please.
The Commissioner of Police and I believe the Attorney General spoke on this issue prior as to why the SOE should be extended. I think there has been demonstrative and measurable decreases in crime and criminality. Additionally, in terms of what the SOE was set up for in the first place, there's information that rests with certain security agencies that will treat with the need for the extension. In terms of anything to do with Venezuela and Trinidad and it being tethered to the SOE, that does not arise at all.
Minister, can you definitively state if the initial reason for the SOE has been addressed effectively by the police service?
I am aware that it is being addressed.
Has it concluded?
You would need to speak to the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Police about that.
The reason why I posed the question specifically to you, with all due respect to what Secretary Morris said earlier, is that when you speak about having the media at the diplomatic center, we don't have the defense minister here. We don't have the Homeland Security minister here. We don't have the police commissioner here. And it's often that one person is pointing to the other to get these questions answered. And then we pose the questions to who is in front of us, and the questions aren't answered. But you said something interesting moments ago. You said that the SOE has had a significant impact on crime. So is the reason that we are going to Parliament tomorrow to get the SOE extended because it is being used as a crime-fighting strategy to reduce the murder rate and effectively control crime in Trinidad and Tobago?
No, that is not what I said. What I said is that it has had an effect on crime. I never said that the SOE was set up to treat with crime and criminality within the country. It being a symptom of the SOE, yes, it is. Statistically, it has demonstrated that. But the nucleus or the actual reason for the genesis for the original setup of the SOE remains the same. And I mean, it is unfortunate, I suspect, as a member of the media, that you come here sometimes and you may not be able to question a particular minister on a particular subject. But I am certain that you know where their ministries are. And members of the media, just like you, Doris, you have all our telephone numbers and you message from time to time. And from time to time, we give you responses.
I could only hope that we could be treated like Bloomberg and get invited to one of your offices to have a sit-down interview. On behalf of all the media, not just our...
Guardian was there. You just weren't there. Yeah.
Okay.
Minister, I mean, the budget has passed in both houses. Shortly, it will be, the various regulations and so on should be effectively legally in place. How soon can the various regional corporations, the 14 regional corporations, expect actual releases from the allocations in the budget to the Ministry of Local Government?
The regional corporations have a procedure that they follow in terms of making requests for releases. Very shortly before the midterm review, we had a very efficient and effective meeting with our personnel who manage finance. It included our planning departments, our finance and accounting departments, and our chief executive officers. And out of that, we were able to prioritize our funding and see where there were hiccups with correspondence requesting releases. And I felt that that was very effective in allowing all the corporations to come together so that we'll be on the same page, including our permanent secretary and our ministry's planning personnel. We plan to have another meeting like that soon, and that is an internal mechanism that allows us to narrow in on any hiccups they may have. What I have asked all regional corporations, even before the budget, was to prepare estimates so that once they know what their allocation is, they can meet the requirements to request releases. That way, in the dry season or very early, by the second quarter of the financial year, they can start construction because they would be ready to follow the procurement laws to have contractors start work within their region. And I will be working closely with all of them to ensure that we have the administrative support, that they are not stuck with the bureaucracy, but that we meet all the requirements in terms of accountability, because we cannot shortcut the system and risk not being properly accountable for the funds.
Minister, I mean, on that note, do we have alternatives now for URP and CPEP?
Yes. In the budget, the Minister of Finance would have indicated that there is a fund set up of $100 million that will go towards initiatives in different ministries. You will also appreciate that we have the national recruitment drive that was very successful, and it was headquartered at the National Cycling Center, but we had 12 locations throughout the country where people were able to go and register, as well as register online. On Wednesdays, I see members of the public, and quite a number of constituents who came in indicated that they are well qualified and they applied on this drive, and it makes it more accessible, it makes it more fair, so that whereas in the past jobs would have been given through political favors, this government has opened the opportunities to be available to all, so everyone can access it. And the funds from the Ministry of Finance, that is in that fund that the minister identified, will go towards funding more opportunities. But what we are working on is the vacancies that have already been identified, because we do have a lot of vacancies and we do have people who need jobs.
But can you give anything specific? What is going to replace URP and what is going to replace CPEP?
At the regional corporate, CPEP and URP would have performed a lot of functions of the local authorities. And I feel if we have to empower local government, we have to restore local government having that autonomy. the former government would have invented CPEP to undermine the regional corporations. And I really think this is an opportunity to bring back life into our regional corporations so they can do what they were designated to do, what they are required to do in law. But it's not just URP and CPEP that provided jobs, based when we speak about unskilled labor. There are several initiatives that the government will have, and I know that there are people who have qualifications and have not been able to get a job, but there are also people who do not have qualifications and want to get jobs. So we will be making those available. We will be rolling out several initiatives. It will not only be at the regional corporations. It is a whole of government approach to facilitate employment, but also so that that employment will not be concentrated in one area or one, in certain geographic areas, but it will be fair. It will be spread out throughout the country geographically.
Minister Sobers, when the USS Gravely was here, there was a lot of apprehension within the population. You saw panic buying, etc. Would you give the population assurance now that they should be calm, that there isn't anything to worry about in terms of an U.S. invasion of Venezuela?
Well, I wish I could have been like my Prime Minister to indicate that my name is Kamla and they should be calm. But I would say that they should always be calm. There's nothing to worry about, and I don't know what would have caused all this panic amongst the citizenry. All is well in Trinidad and Tobago.
You, at your press conference that Bloomberg was at, you spoke about the two Trinidadians whose families said they perished in one of these strikes. I spoke to the mother of one of them, Mr. Rishi Samaru's mother. She said she made a report to the Barataria police station, and they told her that they cannot take a report because the incident happened in international waters. You have any comment about that?
No, well, I mean, I don't know anything about that. I stand by what I said, and I think all of government indicated that essentially what they should in fact do is make a missing person or file a missing persons report. The acting commissioner of police at the point in time would have set up officers to assist the families and go to them. I don't know if that was done. You say that they went to a police station and that's what the police officers told them. Well, I think then that maybe we would then definitely have to ask the Minister of Homeland Security and maybe the Commissioner of Police to send some officers out to procure some statements from the families to assist them with respect to that.
Do you still maintain that they could be missing and not dead?
There's no evidence to suggest anything otherwise. Do you have any evidence to suggest that they are dead?
The family said, Officer Samaru said that they had video called him just before he went onto the boat. And since then, he has not been in contact with them.
All of that at this juncture is conjecture. There's no evidence to suggest that what you're saying actually happened. So we will have to wait for the police to conduct a proper and thorough investigation before any type of pronouncement could be made on that.
How long that will take? I mean,
I am not a police officer. So what I'm saying to you is simply that there's a procedure that has to be adopted, and what we can in fact do, not to make any special provision for anybody, but raise the matter with the Commissioner of Police to ensure then that if a report is to be made by the families in furtherance of missing persons, that they are assisted properly.
Apart from closure in this particular matter, there's the whole issue. There's a legal issue in terms of a death certificate. In terms of DNA or other, if there's no evidence that the persons are dead or alive, but in terms of they are still legal persons alive, so to speak, in the absence of a death certificate. I don't know if you want to comment. If you want to comment in terms of because you're a lawyer. You're a lawyer.
And you're wading into a territory that there are several different legal responses to that particular or possible question that you're trying to put to me. So essentially, there are several different applications that can be made in the event that someone is of the belief that somebody may not be missing and they may have perished. So I would not want to provide a legal answer for a situation like that, because there's a plethora of different information that would have to come before a legal individual for them to give proper advice on such an issue.
Certainly. So there's a process and procedure, perhaps, that's ongoing. There's another issue here in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago is a candidate for one of the rotating seats on the United Nations Security Council. There have been some, having regard to the recent positions adopted by Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of CARICOM in respect of the region being a zone of peace. Could you give some assurance that our candidacy, Trinidad and Tobago's candidacy, continues to be supported by the regional heads?
Which regional heads?
Well, by the Caribbean CARICOM heads in terms
CARICOM would have given its support to the candidature of Trinidad and Tobago as a non-permanent representative of the UNSC. We have been in contact with our UN PR Ambassador Parson. There's nothing to suggest that the candidacy is in danger.
Right. So as a follow-up to Pryor's question, to try to determine the fate of the two alleged Trinidadians who may have allegedly been on this boat. The question really is, have you noticed, do the Venezuelan authorities keep a tally of persons who allegedly had been victims of the boat strike? So, in a war, if it's Gaza or wherever, or Ukraine, quite often you'd have the photographs and names and so on, so you actually identify. But with your resources of yourself and your ministry, have you been able to monitor Venezuelan media to say if because the number now is like about 40 people, if the authorities in Venezuela have been publishing names and the addresses of these persons at all, and that might help us to fathom out whether there were, in fact, two Trini victims, please.
Sean, I appreciate the question, but as you are in fact asking, it's whether or not the Venezuelans are in fact keeping some type of record, right? So that obviously the question should be put to the Venezuelan authorities. But in terms of what my ministry is responsible for, once we become aware through diplomatic channels that a Trinidadian is in distress in another country, there are certain protocols that we would put in place to assist as best as we can that individual, whilst respecting the rule of law and the judicial process of that particular country.
Minister, continuing along this theme, we have a family that would have conducted a funeral ceremony for one of the alleged victims of this incident. A memorial service, so to speak. When you hear from the government, do you have information? People question whether there's any concern for the Trinidad and Tobago nationals that may or may not have been victims. So, simply put, does the government care whether Trinidadians have been involved, known or unknown, in these strikes in international waters close to ours?
I'm glad that you put that question to me. It is absolutely the government cares about all 1-point-something million citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, whether they are involved in nefarious activity or not. I'm not saying that these individuals were involved in anything nefarious, but consistently since this incident arose, what the media has done is actually quite irresponsible. When we say, or when the government says, when I say that there's no evidence to suggest that these persons were killed by a strike pursuant to military intervention, we say that because it is a fact. There's no evidence to suggest that they were killed by a military strike. And essentially what we have said is that the position is, if these persons are in fact missing, because that is what we know at this point in time, there's a procedure to be adopted. But what the irresponsible media has been doing is going out and encouraging people to say that these persons were killed in a strike. One such individual asked a question, tethering it to the U.S. Gravely. There's no evidence that the Gravely was involved in any strike. So when we put the questions back to the media, if you have evidence to support the wild, spurious, crazy allegations that you are making and spreading and peddling within the public's domain in an irresponsible manner, then it is you who are supposed to give us then the information if you know what you are talking about. But if you don't, then report sensibly, report factually, but don't contribute to fear-mongering and illegitimate statements. We are here to assist as best as we can, and that is why I reiterated that in terms of the families, if they require assistance with respect to furthering the missing person situation, I will personally reach out to the Minister of Homeland Security and the Commissioner of Police, just like I would do with any other relative that has a missing, any other person rather that has a missing relative, to assist them accordingly. And I suspect the same with any other minister or member of this government under this particular Prime Minister. We hold ourselves accountable, we hold ourselves open to assist accordingly, and that is what we will continue to do.
So, to be responsible then and report accurately on the facts, does the government have evidence that any of these people killed, whether they were Trinidadian or not, were in possession of illegal drugs, illegal weapons, illegal narcotics from our U.S. counterparts?
The answer to that, in short, is no. And the reason for the answer being no, the strikes are military intervention strikes or military strikes being conducted in pursuit of a military operation by the U.S. There's information that the U.S. will share. There's information that they won't share pursuant to a military operation, which is what this is. These are strikes that are being conducted in international waters. If these strikes occurred within national waters, then the U.S. would have to share information with Trinidad and Tobago. These are not strikes that are occurring within our territorial waters, nor are these strikes that are occurring in our EZ. They are strikes that are occurring in international waters, pursuant to a military operation with entities that they've designated as terrorist organizations. I don't hear the media coming to ask Trinidad and Tobago about strikes that occur in Lebanon or Syria by other international entities when they deem persons as combatants pursuant to designating them as terrorists. So it's very hypocritical then to come and ask the government about military operations by the U.S. when they are occurring in international waters.
With all due respect, Minister, these international waters are not far across the way. We could see Venezuela from Cedras, from Icacos. We could see Venezuela from even Moruga. So I think it's quite a valid question to ask, especially because between these waters, Trinidad and Tobago nationals, fishermen, they complain often about interactions with pirates within those very international waters. So to bring it back to facts, as you so put it, and in fairness and in the interest of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, not because of my personal interest, but the national interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, who sometimes go between Venezuela and Trinidad. We have those reports. And because these kinetic strikes are taking place in international waters and our citizens may be involved, it is a fair question. So again, are we even seeking to get that evidence from the United States, especially because it may, only because there's a possibility that it may involve Trinidad and Tobago citizens?
As we said when these operations began, once you are a law-abiding fisher folk or pleasure craft person operating legitimately, you have absolutely nothing to fear. And that answers your question in short.
Do we have evidence that the strikes occurred in international waters and not our own?
Yes. Yes, we have evidence that the strikes occurred in international waters.
Minister Sobers, to say we are responsible, I think you are wrong, to put it bluntly, because we are putting the questions to you that the evidence that the family came saying that For example, they had evidence of a video call with one of the guys who entered the boat, and since then they haven't heard from him. I mean, that in itself is something means that he's no longer wrong. I mean, would the government consider that?
Prior, if I might interject in this issue, we have spent over 10 minutes on this particular question. The minister has answered every single angle. This was a press conference called to discuss Trinidad and Tobago's relief effort for our CARICOM sister, proving our love for our sister in CARICOM. Our dear friend from CNC3 has asked a number of questions on this issue, as yourself, and the minister has answered it. If we can now move on to another topic, especially relating to our relief effort to help our CARICOM sisters, we keep that strong relations with our CARICOM brothers and sisters.
No, I want a response from the minister saying when the media has information, we are not being responsible. We are presenting the information we have from family members to you, and we want a response. It's a simple, principle.
I appreciate that, Prior. I never said that you were responsible. So if it fell into your garden, well, sorry about that.
I'm not saying it, no. It didn't fall in my garden at all.
I never said that you were irresponsible either, Darius.
It didn't fall in my garden at all.
I said the media, right? So Prior, I hear you. I respectfully don't share that same view that you hold. That because the very last conversation I may or may not have had with somebody on video call means that they are no longer around. They just may not want to speak to me anymore. I wouldn't go around assuming that they are dead by a kinetic strike. So, based upon that, what I would do responsibly would go and file a missing persons report if it is I am concerned. And I hear you, Prior, and that's why I said to Darius, and I will repeat to you as well too, I will personally reach out to the Minister of Homeland Security and to the Commissioner of Police so that this matter could be further fleshed out and ventilated, which is what I would do with any other national who reaches out to me with respect to something like that. If you have the information, as you said that you possibly may have, I will pass it on to them accordingly.
It is not my job to present you information. It is my
It's
job.
your job just to talk about it, Lucy.
To report the facts.
Well, the facts or information.
Well, information and reporting. I mean, I got
Which is
the
not facts.
side of the family, and I'm presenting it to you, so I want a response. And
I give you a response.
Thank you.
Yes.
One final question from me.
Thank you.
How would you deem the meeting between the Venezuelan ambassador and the opposition leader here in Trinidad and Tobago while the Congress in Venezuela were moving a motion to deem the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago persona non grata?
We were totally unbothered by it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that the meeting was taking place. So, I mean, if the...
Do you think it's appropriate or inappropriate, just asking that?
No, respectfully, it's a democracy. So if the opposition leader chose to meet with the Venezuelan ambassador and they had discussions, that is their business.
We saw images, we saw footage of Venezuelans mobilizing with the picture of our Prime Minister, some of them defaced, calling her a criminal, among other things. What are your thoughts about those demonstrations over there? And more importantly, the President of Venezuela urging citizens in Trinidad and Tobago to stand up against the U.S.?
Right. I indicated that on behalf of the government, we condemned the resolution that was passed in the strongest possible terms. We took great umbrage to it, and it being passed in the assembly. In terms of the demonstrations, I have my personal opinions on that. But in our own country, we would have protests from time to time. It's a democracy here. Venezuela has their own operations. But in terms of the resolution that was passed, in the strongest possible terms, we condemned it. We distanced ourselves totally from it. We think it to be ridiculous. And that is the position of this administration.
Minister Sobers, you said you had information that the strike that reported on October 14th happened in national waters. What evidence exactly is that? What specific evidence you have?
That would have been some of the information that would have been shared to us by the U.S.
Do you know exactly where it happened?
No, I don't have the longitude and latitude to provide to you now.
But would you do it sometime in the future?
I may consider providing you with the longitude and latitude in the
Thank you.
future.
So thank you very much, members of the media, members of the public, for joining us, and a special thanks to the Information Division of the Office of the Prime Minister for helping us facilitate this press conference. Have a great evening, and again, join us for Parliament tomorrow as the government continues to implement its legislative agenda. Thank you very much.
Right. So